Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short. Pastor Borghardt, what's the difference between a Lutheran and a Christian? Well, a Lutheran is a Christian who believes that salvation is by Jesus alone, that is, by grace alone, received by faith alone, and all of this comes only from Scripture alone. The confession that makes a Lutheran is sola gratia, grace alone, sola fide, by faith alone, sola scriptura, Scripture alone. Now, Lutherans weren't originally called Lutherans. They were actually originally called evangelicals back in the time of the Reformation. Evangelical Catholics, gospel Catholics. You don't want to use the term evangelical that much here because it means totally different nowadays. But understand that when I use the term evangelical from now on, I'm talking about the Lutheran faith. That is the confession that salvation is by grace alone, received by faith alone, confessed in Scripture alone. In the 1517 Leipzig debate, John Eck labeled the evangelicals Lutheran in order to sort of slam them, classify them like all the other heresies of the church were classified by the name of their teacher. So Lutheran after Martin Luther. The evangelicals receive that title as a gift because it doesn't really matter what you call us, as long as you understand that we believe that salvation is by Jesus alone, received by grace alone, that is, by faith alone, confessed solely in Scripture alone. So it doesn't matter if you call us Lutherans. We're not the cult of Luther. Luther isn't always right. Sometimes he's wrong. All that matters is what Scripture says. And Scripture says that salvation is sola gratia, sola fide. Now, so today, while meaning Lutherans are trying to duck the title of Lutheran because they want to confess unity, especially with other Protestants. You know, it's divisive to all these denominational labels. That's the way they feel. But whenever you make a confession, you are making a statement of belief, and that belief causes division. So although it's sad that there are divisions in Christendom, it's unavoidable as long as people confess what Scripture gives them to say. And Jesus actually says, I didn't come to bring peace but the sword. So there's no way of dodging a confession and therefore a label. Even non-denominational is itself a denomination, the denomination of not having a denomination. Well, that'll make your eyes cross, but you get the point. Baptists confess what Baptists teach. Evangelicals confess whatever evangelicals teach, and Lutherans confess what Lutherans teach. To say that we are Lutheran Christians would be a little bit redundant. It's like a feline cat or a canine dog. A Lutheran is a Christian. A Lutheran Christian is a Christian Christian. Now, not all Christians have to be Lutheran. Remember, Lutheranism is a confession that salvation is by Jesus alone, that is, by grace alone, received by faith alone, and all this comes from Scripture alone. Okay, so you've got that reoccurring theme of sola gratia, sola fide, sola scriptura. And I would say, be a Lutheran. Embrace your faith. Don't run from it. The Baptists don't run from their faith. The Roman Catholics don't run from their being Roman Catholics. Be a Lutheran. You're making the confession at your confirmation that you will suffer all, even death, rather than to deny this faith. So dare to confess what you believe. That salvation is by Jesus alone. His death on the cross is the sole thing which makes us worthy to be saved. It's the sole thing which saves us. And that is received by faith alone. And all of this comes from Scripture alone. Dare to be a Lutheran. Dare to confess Jesus. And since this is Higher Things, have a blast while you do it. I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short.